I did just spring this on Thomas in the private chat, but the first guy that I heard talking about Ricky Pearsall was Thomas Schaefer. And so he's going to come on here after I give the breakdown. 6'1", 189 pounds, another 23-year-old. So he is old, but he has 4.4 speed. He played 2 years, at Arizona State and 2 at Florida. Career best last year with 965 receiving yards. Thomas, come on and give us like the most optimistic scouting report anyone's ever heard on this kid.
Well, actually, back in October, Dan Schneier was in town, and it was after Pearsall had that game against Charlotte where he has that one-handed catch that went viral. And I'm like, dude, you have to check this guy out. Like, Florida's team has been so bad for so long. This is the only guy that's out here making plays that like when you see like a Hall of Fame, I'm not saying he's a Hall of Famer, but when you see a flashy guy and you're like, oh, that's what a Hall of Famer is. That's what a great player is. Like, that's what he was doing at Florida on these garbage teams. So I was like, dude, you got to check him out. He's going to be a sleeper this draft class. And then all of a sudden he has a great Senior Bowl, then he has a great combine, and now he's not a sleeper anymore. So I told him my comp to him was Adam Thielen because he was an older prospect. Thielen was old coming out. So, not maybe an immediate impact, but give him a year or two to develop, and potentially he can be a really, really good starter in the NFL. And I still feel that way. I think there's a little bit more hype now with him. So he's not a sleeper, like I said, but no, he's a great player. And I really wanted him to somehow fall to the Vikings. That would just be amazing for me. But no, I love this guy. I think he's a star.
Well, I'm not sure for his dynasty value we want him to fall to the Vikings, because putting him in the same receiving room with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison might not work out well for his target share, considering they don't have a quarterback. But no, I appreciate that. Now, Jacob, I think that you're relatively fond of him, but it seems like everybody I talk to, and maybe that's just this guy talked to Thomas more than anybody else, is really saying they are higher on this guy than consensus. So why isn't he ranked higher?
His production is not good. And you could point towards Florida just being dysfunctional as the reason for that, but it's like really not good, especially on a per route basis. Like, I think his single season high target per route run rate was like 23% or something. And it's like, that's barely going to get it done at the NFL level as a starting slot for fantasy purposes. Yeah, 22.5% in 5 seasons, 3 of which he had significant amount of routes. So yeah, he's not drawing targets at a high rate, which is weird for a slot guy. He did work down the field though quite a bit. Like that year where he drew 23%, his average depth of target was 17 yards, which is just pretty absurd for a slot guy. So yeah, I think Christian Kirk is a decent comparison at the top end. I think to me, Pearsall is similar to Roman Wilson. He can stretch the field from the slot, and that is an intriguing skill set. He's a little bit bigger, but I just wish that we had more from him to believe in the data. Like, why isn't he producing if we expect that he'll be able to at the NFL level?
It's the Florida offense, just like they ruined Anthony Richardson 2 years ago. Like, we do a lot of like sideways stuff. Like, if you just watch a Florida game, you'll be like, how is this team like functioning in actually winning games? Because like you said, we didn't use Ricky enough. And I mean, he was still our leading receiver, and I think he only had like 4 touchdowns or whatever, but our quarterback play hasn't been great.
No, he had the 3rd highest off target rate career in this class, 18%.
Yeah, you saw a lot of off-target throws, right, Thomas?
Yeah, Graham Mertz, Dan Schneier knows a lot about him. He was a Wisconsin transfer. So I think for what we had, we got a lot out of him. So if he was playing with a Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, he was with Jaden Daniels at Arizona State before. I think we would have seen a lot bigger production with an actual offensive mind.
Mm-hmm.
So you played the villain role well there, Jacob. I appreciate that, Thomas, giving you the fluff. And I will say, like I said, I hear more people optimistic about Ricky Pearsall than I do hear them pessimistic. And I think you look at Matt Waldman, and I try not to give away too much of his rankings, but he's got him ranked ahead of 5 wide receivers that we've talked about in depth this weekend. Now, So like there's plenty of like you would rather have. So you are kind of undecided, Jacob, on Pearsall versus Wilson. Is that right? Just like let's see who the NFL likes more.
Yeah, basically.
What about him versus Mitchell?
I think I would lean towards Mitchell just because of the upside. But if he gets like a great landing spot, then I would go with Pearsall or Wilson over Mitchell.
And last one I'll ask is him or Keon Coleman.
Yeah, I'll go with the slot guys over Coleman. I think it's really a tough task to try to project Coleman to be relevant for fantasy.
So again, I think you expect Ricky Pearsall at the end of round 2, early round 3 in your rookie drafts. If you're more optimistic about him and you want to reach in the middle of round 2, or if you're drafting with Thomas and he picks after you, you should definitely take him in the middle of round 2 if you want to get him.